Everyone in the SEAL training center had already made up their minds before she even stepped into the room. Whispers filled the air the moment she walked through the door. Some of the male trainees exchanged smirks and quiet laughs, nudging each other and saying things like, "Women can't be SEALs," or "She won't last a week here." The skepticism was thick, almost tangible, hanging over her like a storm cloud. It wasn't just playful teasing. It was doubt, deep-rooted and relentless, aimed to intimidate and test her resolve before any real challenge had even begun. She felt it, of course. Who wouldn't? But instead of letting it shake her, she let it fuel her. Years of preparation had led her to this moment, and she knew that proving herself wasn't about arguing with them. It was about action. Her focus wasn't on the doubters. It was on the mission she had set for herself the moment she decided to become a SEAL. She had trained relentlessly, pushing her body past limits that most people wouldn't even dream of approaching. She had endured grueling workouts, harsh early mornings, sleepless nights, and a mental conditioning regime that demanded not just strength, but clarity and focus under pressure. This was the moment all of that preparation would matter. The first few days were already intense. SEAL training wasn't just about physical ability. It was about mental endurance. Every task was designed to push trainees to their breaking point and beyond. From endless push-ups and pull-ups to swimming in icy waters that made your bones ache, every day tested them in ways that few could imagine. Her male peers assumed she would crumble first. They looked at her with pity disguised as amusement, thinking her presence was some kind of joke, something out of place in a program built to weed out weakness. But she had a quiet confidence, a calm that unsettled them even more. Where others saw her as fragile, she saw herself as prepared. Her training had not just built her muscles. It had honed her mind. She knew that in any life-or-death scenario, panic was more dangerous than fatigue. A steady hand, a sharp mind, and the ability to read situations quickly could make the difference between success and failure. She had learned that every mistake counted, and that discipline was more powerful than brute strength. On the first day of practical exercises, she noticed the subtle ways the others underestimated her. During physical drills, the men would often rush through exercises with wild, uncontrolled energy, trying to prove their dominance. She, on the other hand, moved deliberately with precision and awareness of her own body. Each movement was calculated to maximize efficiency while minimizing energy waste. They would glance over at her occasionally, confused, as if she were breaking some unspoken rule about how a SEAL trainee should act. They whispered things like, "She's too slow," or "She'll never make it through Hell Week." What they didn't realize was that speed without control often led to mistakes, and mistakes in SEAL training could be costly. Beyond the physical tests, the mental games were even more challenging. Trainees were often put in high-pressure situations designed to make them doubt themselves. Mock rescue missions, team challenges, and simulated ambushes forced them to think quickly and work together, even when panic threatened to take over. She noticed how the men would sometimes freeze under pressure, their confidence faltering when plans went awry. She, however, thrived in these moments. Her mind remained clear, assessing options, calculating risks, and acting decisively. It was a skill that could not be faked and could not be rushed, something that would soon set her apart in ways no one expected. By the end of the first week, the doubters began to notice cracks in their own assumptions. The sneers and laughter didn't stop immediately, but the tone shifted subtly. Some of the men started watching her more closely, curious about how she managed to perform so well despite their expectations. They saw her not just surviving the challenges but excelling quietly, methodically, and with determination that seemed almost unshakable. Her presence alone started to change the dynamic in the group. Doubt and underestimation, which had been so casually thrown at her, now carried a hint of tension. She wasn't proving herself to them with words. She was proving it through her actions, through the unwavering confidence in every move she made. That silent, steady determination became a force of its own, demanding attention even from the most skeptical trainees. And deep down, she knew this was just the beginning. The first week was only a taste of what SEAL training would demand. There would be moments of exhaustion so intense it would feel impossible to continue. There would be drills where the cold would bite at her bones, where the pressure would crush confidence, and where the faintest mistake could mean failure. But she was ready. Every doubt cast at her, every laugh behind her back, every sneer and whisper only strengthened her resolve. She didn't just want to survive SEAL training. She intended to dominate it, to prove that skill, courage, and mental strength were what mattered most, not gender. By the time the first week ended, the whispers had quieted slightly. She didn't celebrate or gloat. She simply kept moving forward, keeping her focus on the real challenges ahead. The men who had doubted her were no longer laughing. Not yet. But they were beginning to realize that she was different, that she was not someone to be underestimated. And that realization, quiet and slow as it was, marked the first small victory in what would become a remarkable journey. The first real test came sooner than anyone expected. SEAL training wasn't about waiting for challenges. It was about throwing trainees into them without warning, forcing them to adapt, survive, and excel under extreme pressure. The obstacle course that day was notorious among the students. It was nicknamed the Gauntlet for a reason. It twisted, turned, and climbed in ways that tested every muscle, every ounce of stamina, and every shred of mental focus. As the trainees lined up at the starting point, the tension was palpable. Most of the men were sizing each other up, eager to prove themselves, while secretly curious to see if the woman could handle what lay ahead. Some tried to hide their doubts behind smirks and confident postures, but their eyes betrayed them. She stood quietly at the starting line, taking deep, steady breaths. Her mind wasn't on what others thought of her. It was on the task in front of her. She had run similar courses hundreds of times during preparation, but she knew this one would push her to a level beyond anything she had faced. The course was designed to break people not physically alone but mentally, to make them question themselves and their limits at every turn. She felt a familiar surge of adrenaline, not fear. She knew that in order to succeed, she had to remain calm, precise, and focused. Panicking or rushing would only lead to mistakes, and mistakes in this course could mean elimination. The whistle blew, and the trainees surged forward. The men charged ahead with raw energy, leaping over walls, swinging across ropes, and crawling through mud with a chaotic burst of strength. They were loud, competitive, and desperate to be seen as the fastest. She watched their movements for a brief second, analyzing their rhythm, and then followed her own path, steady, controlled, and precise. While they were expending all their energy in wild, uneven bursts, she conserved hers, moving efficiently from one obstacle to the next. Every climb, every jump, every crawl was calculated to maximize her speed while minimizing wasted effort. As she navigated the course, she began to notice the first signs of strain among the men. Arms trembled on the rope climbs, legs faltered on the walls, and faces that had been confident at the starting line now showed fear and frustration. Many of them underestimated the difficulty of pacing themselves. They assumed sheer power and speed would carry them through, but the gauntlet was designed to punish such overconfidence. She, however, kept moving, calm and composed, each step bringing her closer to her goal while the others began to falter. One particularly difficult obstacle was a series of hanging bars over a deep pit filled with water. Many of the men tried to swing from bar to bar with aggressive momentum, some slipping and plunging into the cold water below. She approached the obstacle differently. Instead of trying to rush, she measured each grip, shifted her weight with precision, and used her strength efficiently. Her body moved like a machine, controlled and deliberate, as she crossed the gap without falling once. The others looked on in disbelief. Some had assumed she would be the first to fall, but she had not only kept up, she had excelled. It wasn't just physical ability that set her apart, it was her mental strategy. She didn't allow herself to get distracted by the whispers or glances of doubt from her peers. Where others reacted emotionally to mistakes, panicking or rushing to catch up, she stayed in control. She understood that survival in the SEALs was as much about mental discipline as physical prowess. Each obstacle was a puzzle, and she solved them methodically, step by step. Her quiet confidence began to make a subtle impression on the men who had laughed at her just days before. Halfway through the course, the instructors threw in an unexpected twist. A timed segment with a simulated hazard, ropes coated in slippery mud and uneven platforms that tested balance and coordination. Many of the men lost their rhythm entirely, slipping, falling, and even panicking at the sudden difficulty. She, however, adjusted seamlessly. Her focus never wavered. Her movements remained precise. She landed each step carefully, using her training to adapt instantly to changing conditions. Every eye on the course began to notice her exceptional performance. The laughter and sneers were gone now, replaced by curiosity, and in some cases, grudging respect. By the time she reached the final obstacle, a steep, towering wall that required both brute strength and careful technique, most of the men were exhausted. Some couldn't even climb it without assistance. She approached it calmly, planting her hands and feet deliberately, using momentum and leverage perfectly. With a final push, she scaled the wall and landed on the other side, not just completing the course, but doing so with a level of control and efficiency that left everyone in awe. When she crossed the finish line, the instructors nodded in approval, noting not just her speed but her flawless technique, her strategic thinking, and her unshakable composure under pressure. The men who had doubted her now faced a quiet, uncomfortable truth. Their assumptions had been wrong. For the first time, some of them admitted silently, maybe even to themselves, that this woman could indeed be a SEAL, and perhaps even a remarkable one. By the end of the day, the whispers had shifted. They were no longer about doubt or laughter. They were questions and glances of curiosity. Trainees who had once assumed she was weak now watched her closely, trying to understand her methods, hoping to learn from her approach. The woman didn't celebrate or boast. She simply moved on to the next challenge, confident in her ability, unshaken by opinion. She knew that every success, every demonstration of skill, was just another step toward proving what mattered most: determination, preparation, and mental strength. That day, she didn't just complete an obstacle course. She sent a clear message without saying a word. Actions spoke louder than doubts, and she had just made hers impossible to ignore. The journey ahead would be even harder, but after conquering the first major test, she had shown both herself and the doubters that she was ready for anything. After the first week of intense obstacle courses and mental drills, the trainees barely had time to catch their breath before the next challenge arrived. SEAL training had a way of testing people when they least expected it, and that day was no exception. The instructors announced a surprise live-fire training exercise, a simulated ambush scenario designed to push trainees to their limits. No one had been given any warning about the complexity of the mission. Everyone had to think quickly, act decisively, and work as a team under extreme pressure. It was the kind of test that revealed the true character and skill of a SEAL candidate, and the woman knew this would be one of the toughest challenges yet. When the scenario was explained, the men immediately started planning among themselves, each confident that their experience, strength, and quick reflexes would carry the day. Many glanced at her, some whispering, "She won't last 5 minutes," or, "Why even put her in a real position?" The woman heard none of it, and she didn't let it matter. Her training had taught her that doubt, whether from others or oneself, was a distraction. Focus, precision, and strategy mattered far more than noise or opinions. She studied the map and terrain carefully, analyzing angles, potential threats, and the positions they were expected to hold. The instructors placed her at a high-risk position near the perimeter, a spot known to be difficult and dangerous. Most of the men had avoided this position during simulations in the past, citing the challenges it posed. They assumed that it would be too much for her, that she would falter under pressure. But she felt a spark of determination. This was exactly the kind of situation where her skills could shine, where careful planning and calm execution could turn the odds in her favor. She quietly prepared herself, double-checking her equipment and mentally running through every scenario she had trained for. The ambush began suddenly. Instructors playing the role of enemy combatants appeared from multiple angles, creating chaos and forcing the trainees to respond instantly. Shouts, simulated gunfire, and the confusion of the scenario overwhelmed some of the men. A few froze entirely, unsure of which direction to move or which threat to prioritize. The woman, however, remained calm. Her eyes scanned the environment rapidly, identifying potential dangers and deciding in fractions of a second which actions would neutralize threats efficiently. Her position at the perimeter gave her a clear view of 9 opposing marksmen who were positioned to eliminate the trainees if the scenario were real. She quickly assessed the risks, planning a route that would allow her to take them down methodically without exposing herself unnecessarily. She understood that panic was contagious. If she lost focus, it could cost not just her success but the safety of her teammates in the simulation. Every step had to be calculated, every movement precise. As she moved into action, her peers couldn't help but notice. Some were shocked at her composure, others bewildered at how she seemed to anticipate every move of the enemy. The men who had laughed and doubted her just days ago were now watching silently, struggling to comprehend what they were witnessing. She wasn't rushing blindly. She was executing a strategy that combined speed, accuracy, and intelligent positioning. Within minutes, she neutralized the first few marksmen, using her training and keen observation to make each strike count. Her confidence grew with every success, but she never allowed herself to become overconfident. She knew the scenario could change in an instant, and one misstep could have consequences for the entire team. The others, who had thought they could easily outperform her, were now scrambling, reacting to the chaos rather than controlling it. By the time she reached the midpoint of her mission, she had already neutralized several of the most dangerous threats. Her teammates began to realize that she wasn't just surviving, she was excelling. Every move was deliberate, every decision sharp. The same people who had once mocked her now started watching with a mixture of respect and disbelief. They couldn't understand how someone they had underestimated could dominate under pressure in ways they had struggled to do themselves. She moved with precision, taking down the remaining marksmen one by one. Her timing, strategy, and calm execution made it look almost effortless, even though it required incredible skill, focus, and stamina. 13 minutes into the exercise, all 9 marksmen were neutralized. The simulation ended, leaving her peers stunned into silence. The laughter and mockery of earlier days had vanished completely. For the first time, they truly saw her as a capable SEAL trainee, someone who could handle extreme pressure with intelligence and courage. The instructors were equally impressed. They recognized that her performance wasn't just about physical skill. It was about mental strength, decision-making under fire, and the ability to remain calm when chaos surrounded her. These were qualities that could not be taught overnight and could not be faked. They saw in her a level of talent and preparedness that would make her an asset not just in training, but in real-life missions where lives depended on split-second decisions. By the end of the exercise, the atmosphere had changed completely. The men who had doubted her, who had laughed and whispered that women couldn't be SEALs, now carried a mixture of awe and respect. They realized that skill, focus, and determination mattered far more than assumptions or prejudice. The woman didn't celebrate her achievement outwardly. She quietly checked her equipment, reviewed her strategy in her mind, and prepared for the next challenge. But the message had been sent clearly. She was not to be underestimated. That day marked a turning point. The perception of her peers shifted. The doubts that had once surrounded her began to fade, and a quiet respect took their place. The woman had proven not just to the others, but to herself, that preparation, courage, and mental focus could overcome even the harshest skepticism. The ambush exercise was more than a test. It was proof that she belonged, that her presence in the program was not a mistake, and that she was capable of achieving feats that few could even imagine. The ambush started almost without warning. What had begun as a routine training exercise quickly turned into a chaotic, high-pressure scenario. The trainees were caught off guard, and panic rippled through the group. Shouts of "enemy spotted" and simulated gunfire filled the air, along with the sharp commands of instructors trying to keep the situation under control. Most of the men scrambled, unsure of where to go or how to act, their confidence evaporating as the threats appeared from multiple directions. But she didn't panic. Every sense was alert, every thought focused. Her mind scanned the environment, calculating threats, distances, and the most efficient way to respond. From her position at the perimeter, she could see 9 opposing marksmen, simulated enemy combatants, taking strategic positions ready to strike. They were experienced instructors, trained to test her reactions and decision-making under extreme pressure. For most trainees, seeing even one enemy there would have been overwhelming. 9 seemed impossible, yet she didn't flinch. She had prepared for situations like this her entire life. The key, she knew, was to remain calm and act with precision, not speed alone. Panicking would be fatal, hesitation would be fatal. Every movement had to count. She quickly assessed the situation. The enemy marksmen were positioned in ways that could potentially trap her team if not neutralized immediately. Her mind worked like a computer, running through scenarios in seconds. She identified the most dangerous targets first, the ones whose positions would give them the clearest line of fire on her teammates. She had to prioritize carefully. One wrong move and it could compromise the entire exercise. As she moved into action, the others watched in disbelief. Many of the men had assumed she would falter under pressure, that the stress would be too much. But she was different. She moved with deliberate speed, striking with efficiency and accuracy. Each decision was calculated. Which marksman to engage first, which cover to use, how to move without exposing herself to danger. It was not brute force. It was strategy, skill, and nerves of steel working together seamlessly. Within the first few minutes, she neutralized the initial threats with precision. The marksmen were taken down one by one, each action deliberate and controlled. The other trainees struggled to keep up, some frozen in indecision, others panicking as the exercise intensified. They watched her in awe, realizing that this was not luck. It was talent, training, and sheer mental toughness. She had transformed what looked like chaos into a controlled operation, and the difference between her and the others was immediately clear. The remaining marksmen were positioned cleverly, using terrain and obstacles to their advantage. This required her to think quickly and adapt on the fly. She moved from cover to cover, calculating each shot, ensuring that she minimized exposure while maximizing effectiveness. Her timing was impeccable. Every movement flowed naturally, yet each was deliberate, almost like a carefully choreographed dance designed for survival. The trainees who had doubted her just days ago now fell silent. Their whispers, their jokes, their laughter, all of it vanished in the face of what she was accomplishing. Some could hardly believe their eyes. They were witnessing something extraordinary. A single trainee, a woman whom they had underestimated, taking down 9 highly skilled marksmen in a situation that tested even the best of them. For the first time, they understood that SEAL training was about more than just physical strength or bravado. It was about precision, strategy, and mental resilience. Minutes felt like hours as she moved through the exercise, carefully clearing the perimeter and neutralizing threats. She didn't rush, but neither did she hesitate. Her focus never wavered, even as the simulated gunfire and chaos intensified. Each marksman she took down increased her confidence but also demanded more attention. She knew that overconfidence could be just as dangerous as fear. Every step, every decision, every movement had to be perfect. By the time 13 minutes had passed, all 9 marksmen were neutralized. The simulation ended, and for a moment, there was silence. The other trainees stared at her, stunned, as the reality of what they had just witnessed sank in. She had completed a task that many had thought impossible, turning a chaotic, life-or-death scenario into a controlled, successful mission. She had proven, in a way that words could not, that she belonged here, that she was capable of greatness, and that determination and skill could overcome prejudice and doubt. The instructors were equally impressed. They had watched countless trainees attempt similar exercises, but very few displayed the combination of precision, strategy, and calm under pressure that she had shown. They knew that this performance was a clear indicator of her potential, not just as a trainee, but as a future operator who could excel in real missions where stakes were high and lives depended on split-second decisions. By the end of the exercise, the energy among the men had shifted. Those who had doubted her were now quiet, some clearly trying to process what they had seen, others attempting to mask their surprise with forced confidence. But respect was growing in its place. They could no longer deny her skill, her intelligence, or her courage. She had done what they couldn't even imagine, and in doing so, she had earned a place of recognition, if not admiration, in their eyes. Even after the instructors gave the signal to regroup, she didn't celebrate outwardly. She calmly checked her equipment, reviewed the operation in her mind, and prepared for the next challenge. Her focus was not on praise or recognition, it was on readiness, on mastery, and on proving to herself that no challenge was too great. But the silent acknowledgement from her peers and instructors was clear. She had changed their perception forever. That day, she had turned disbelief into awe, laughter into respect, and doubt into acknowledgement. The ambush had been more than a training exercise. It had been a demonstration of what skill, focus, and courage could achieve, even under pressure that most would find impossible to endure. And as she moved forward from that moment, she carried with her not just the knowledge of her own capability, but the undeniable proof that she could overcome any obstacle placed before her, no matter how impossible it seemed. The chaos of the ambush reached its peak as she began her strike. Every second counted, every movement could make the difference between success and failure. The 9 opposing marksmen were not ordinary targets. They were highly trained instructors, experts in strategy and simulation, each one testing her skill to the limit. Most trainees would have panicked at the sight, overwhelmed by the sheer number and precision of the threats. But she was different. Years of preparation, training, and mental discipline had led to this exact moment. Her mind was sharp, her body controlled, and her focus absolute. She moved like a shadow through the battlefield, calm and deliberate, analyzing every threat before taking action. Her eyes scanned quickly, identifying the positions of the marksmen, noting their movements, and calculating which one posed the greatest immediate danger. Every strike had to be perfect. One miscalculation could allow a marksman to fire and compromise her team in the simulation. She didn't rush. Instead, she advanced with controlled, precise movements, blending speed with careful judgment. The first marksman was closest to her team and in the most dangerous position. Without hesitation, she executed her plan, neutralizing the threat with perfect timing. The instructors had designed this challenge to test reactions under pressure, but her calm, methodical approach allowed her to act decisively. Each movement was efficient, each decision deliberate. She didn't waste energy or risk unnecessary exposure. Even in the middle of simulated chaos, she remained composed, thinking several steps ahead. Her teammates watched in disbelief. The same men who had laughed at her days ago were now struggling to comprehend what they were seeing. She wasn't just surviving the ambush, she was dominating it. One by one, she neutralized the marksmen, each action a testament to her skill and mental strength. She calculated the safest paths, used cover intelligently, and timed every strike with precision. By doing so, she minimized risk while maximizing effectiveness, moving through the battlefield like a seasoned operator. The intensity of the exercise increased as the remaining marksmen adjusted their positions, trying to predict her movements. This was meant to pressure her into mistakes, to test whether she would falter under the escalating challenge. Instead, she adapted effortlessly. Her eyes flicked from target to target, her mind running scenarios in seconds, anticipating their reactions and countering them before they could act. It wasn't just reflex. It was strategy, honed by countless hours of preparation and mental conditioning. Minutes passed like hours, yet she remained unstoppable. With each successful strike, her confidence grew, but she never let it cloud her judgment. She understood the danger of overconfidence and stayed disciplined. Every marksman she neutralized brought her closer to completing the mission, yet the stakes felt higher with every step. The other trainees were exhausted, struggling to respond to the chaos, while she moved with clarity, precision, and calm. By the time she had neutralized the 5th marksman, it became clear to everyone watching that this was extraordinary. She had turned what was supposed to be a controlled simulation into a display of unmatched skill and focus. The men who had doubted her were now silent, their disbelief replaced by awe. They had seen strength before, they had seen speed, but they had never witnessed the combination of calm, strategy, and flawless execution that she displayed. The remaining 4 marksmen were cunning, using obstacles, cover, and misdirection to try to outsmart her. but she remained several steps ahead. She anticipated their movements, reacted with split-second precision, and neutralized each threat efficiently. Her strikes were like clockwork, calculated, deliberate, and unstoppable. Every instructor observing the scenario took note, impressed by how she handled threats that were meant to overwhelm even the most experienced trainees. When the last marksman fell, the ambush was over. The clock had barely ticked past 13 minutes, yet she had accomplished what few could even imagine. The other trainees were stunned. Silence replaced the previous chatter. Disbelief replaced the earlier arrogance. They had watched someone they had underestimated completely rewrite their expectations. Her performance had not only completed the mission but had done so with efficiency, precision, and an unwavering calm that commanded respect. The instructors approached, nodding in approval. This exercise was designed to test skill, composure, and mental toughness under extreme pressure, and she had passed with flying colors. They recognized that her performance was not just physical, it was mental. She had demonstrated the ability to remain calm, think clearly, and execute perfectly even when surrounded by chaos. These were the qualities that defined a true SEAL operator. Her peers no longer doubted her ability. The men who had laughed and mocked her now looked at her with respect, some even awe. She had shown them that it wasn't about gender, luck, or raw strength. It was about preparation, focus, and courage under pressure. She had neutralized 9 highly skilled marksmen in 13 minutes, a feat that left no room for argument. Even after the exercise ended, she didn't celebrate. She quietly checked her equipment, reviewed her performance mentally, and prepared for the next challenge. Her focus was never on praise, it was on mastery. Yet, the lesson had already been learned by everyone who had watched. Doubt had been replaced with recognition, laughter with respect, and disbelief with awe. That day, she had proven something far greater than completing a training exercise. She had shown that determination, skill, and courage could overcome prejudice, that excellence was not defined by gender, and that a well-trained mind and body could accomplish the extraordinary even under extreme pressure. Her 13-minute strike became a story that would be retold among trainees and instructors alike, a demonstration of what was possible when preparation met opportunity, and a lesson in respect that no one could ignore. The moment the exercise ended, a heavy silence fell over the training ground. The other trainees stood still, their eyes wide, their mouths slightly open, as if they couldn't quite process what they had just seen. The woman had done something extraordinary. She had neutralized 9 highly skilled marksmen in just 13 minutes, something none of them had believed possible. The men who had laughed at her, whispered that women couldn't be SEALs, and assumed she would fail were now confronted with an undeniable reality. Their doubts had been shattered, replaced by a mixture of shock, respect, and, for some, a twinge of shame. The instructors gathered the group and began their debrief. Normally, they focused on mistakes, weaknesses, and areas for improvement, but this time, the conversation was different. The instructors highlighted her performance first, pointing out her exceptional focus, strategy, and composure under pressure. They explained to the other trainees that what they had witnessed was not luck or happenstance. It was skill, training, and mental toughness at the highest level. The woman had demonstrated qualities that even seasoned operators struggled to master, and her performance became the standard against which others were quietly measured. The men who had doubted her felt a mixture of disbelief and admiration. Some tried to hide it behind casual remarks or forced smiles, but the truth was clear to everyone. The woman had proven that gender had no bearing on capability. She had shown them that determination, preparation, and intelligence could outperform arrogance and brute strength. It was a lesson many of them would carry for the rest of their careers, even if they didn't immediately admit it. Some of the trainees were inspired. They had watched someone rise above skepticism and challenge, and they began to realize the importance of focus and strategy over raw power. They saw that staying calm under pressure, analyzing situations carefully, and executing with precision could achieve results that seemed impossible. For a few, it was a moment of humility, a reminder that assumptions and biases could blind them to the truth about someone's abilities. The woman herself didn't revel in the praise or the awestruck glances of her peers. She quietly checked her gear, ensured her weapons and equipment were in order, and reviewed the exercise mentally. Her mind was already moving to the next challenge, already calculating how she could improve and perform even better. She didn't need validation. She had achieved what mattered most, proving to herself that she could excel under pressure. But she also understood the power of her actions. Without saying a word, she had changed the perception of every trainee who had doubted her. Her calm demeanor made her peers respect her even more. There was no arrogance in her success, no boastfulness. She let her actions speak for themselves, and that silence carried weight. Some of the men, who had only recently dismissed her abilities, now found themselves trying to keep up, observing her technique and strategies, hoping to learn something from her example. For the first time, she had become a quiet leader among them, not because she demanded it, but because she had earned it. The instructors used this opportunity as a teaching moment for everyone. They pointed out how the woman's preparation, focus, and quick thinking had allowed her to succeed where others struggled. They emphasized that SEAL training was not about gender, luck, or natural strength alone. It was about resilience, strategy, mental clarity, and the ability to remain calm in situations that would overwhelm most people. The woman's performance became the living example of these principles. Even those who initially felt jealous or frustrated began to shift their perspective. Some admitted quietly to themselves that they had underestimated her, and that underestimation could have cost the team dearly in a real operation. Others began to think about their own weaknesses, how they reacted under pressure, and what they could do to improve. In many ways, her performance had raised the bar for the entire group, challenging them to rethink what was possible. As the day ended, the mood among the trainees had changed completely. The laughter and doubt that had greeted her on her first day were gone. In their place was a new sense of respect, tempered with reflection. The woman had not only survived a grueling exercise but had done so in a way that commanded attention and respect. She had rewritten the rules of what they thought a trainee could achieve. By the time everyone returned to the base, word of her performance had already spread to other instructors and trainees who had not witnessed the exercise. The story of how she had neutralized 9 marksmen in 13 minutes became something of a legend within the training program. Trainees and instructors alike talked about her quietly, acknowledging the skill, determination, and mental toughness it had taken to accomplish such a feat. In that moment, the woman realized something important. It wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving to herself that she belonged, that she was capable, and that her preparation, focus, and courage could overcome any challenge. She had not only survived one of the toughest exercises of her training, but had excelled beyond all expectations, quietly earning the respect of those who had doubted her. Her actions spoke louder than any words ever could, and she had sent a clear message. Assumptions and biases could not hold back someone determined to succeed. The day ended not with celebration, but with quiet acknowledgement and respect. The woman had shown that excellence came from preparation, courage, and a calm mind. She had earned a place not only among the trainees but in the respect and recognition of instructors and peers alike. The ambush exercise had tested everyone's limits, but she had proven that skill, determination, and mental strength could overcome even the harshest doubts. And for the first time, her peers truly understood that she was not just a trainee. They were witnessing the making of a SEAL. Word of her incredible performance spread quickly through the SEAL training program. What had started as whispers among trainees became discussions among instructors, and eventually, the story reached every corner of the base. People talked about the woman who had neutralized 9 marksmen in just 13 minutes, a feat that had left even the most experienced instructors impressed. The initial doubts and jokes about her presence in the program were now replaced with a sense of awe. She had not only completed a grueling exercise but had done so with skill, precision, and mental toughness that few could match. Her peers began to look at her differently. Those who had laughed, whispered, and doubted her ability could no longer dismiss her. Respect had replaced disbelief. Some trainees even sought her out quietly, curious to understand how she had managed the ambush with such calm and efficiency. They asked questions about her strategy, her mindset, and her training, hoping to learn from someone who had demonstrated excellence under extreme pressure. It was a shift that didn't happen overnight, it was earned, silently, through her actions. The instructors also recognized her achievement as extraordinary. They praised her not just for completing the exercise, but for the way she approached it, calmly, strategically, and with precision. They highlighted her as a model for other trainees, emphasizing that her success was the result of preparation, focus, and mental discipline. It wasn't just about strength or speed, it was about thinking clearly under pressure, analyzing situations quickly, and executing flawlessly. She had become a living example of the qualities that defined a SEAL, and her performance was now being used as a teaching moment for the entire program. With this recognition came a new level of responsibility. Trainees began to look to her as an example, seeing not just her success, but also her attitude and approach. She didn't boast about her achievements or demand attention. Her quiet confidence spoke volumes. She had earned respect without trying, simply by performing at the highest level when it mattered most. Her peers began to understand that leadership and skill were demonstrated through action, not words, and they couldn't help but be inspired by her dedication and composure. Even the men who had doubted her began to reflect on their own behavior. Some felt embarrassed that they had laughed or underestimated her, while others felt motivated to improve themselves. Her performance forced them to confront their own biases and assumptions, and in many cases, it changed the way they approached challenges. They realized that judgment based on appearances or stereotypes could lead to missed opportunities, and that true skill and courage came from determination and preparation. Beyond the base and training grounds, the story of her feat began to inspire others. Female trainees, in particular, saw her as a trailblazer, someone who had proven that gender was not a limitation. Her actions demonstrated that with hard work, focus, and courage, anyone could excel in the most demanding environments. She became a symbol of possibility and determination, showing that barriers could be broken and expectations could be exceeded. For many, she was no longer just a trainee. She was a source of inspiration. Despite the growing recognition, she remained grounded. She didn't let praise or attention distract her from the next challenge. Each day brought new tests, new obstacles, and new opportunities to prove herself. She knew that success in one exercise did not guarantee success in the next, and she continued to train with the same intensity, focus, and precision that had brought her this far. Her humility, combined with her skill, made her achievements even more remarkable. People respected her not just for what she had done, but for the way she carried herself while doing it. Over time, her reputation grew. Instructors began to reference her example when discussing strategy, discipline, and focus with other trainees. Her peers would often recall her performance during stressful exercises, reminding themselves to stay calm, think clearly, and act with precision. The story of her 13-minute strike against 9 marksmen became a part of the program's culture, a lesson in excellence, courage, and mental strength. She had not only completed a challenge that seemed impossible, but she had also left a lasting impression on everyone who witnessed it. Her recognition wasn't about fame or attention, it was about respect and credibility. She had shown that preparation, courage, and focus mattered more than assumptions or prejudice. By excelling under pressure, she had earned the respect of her instructors and peers, and she had become a symbol of what determination and skill could achieve. Her performance served as a reminder that excellence was not defined by gender, appearance, or past assumptions. It was defined by action, focus, and resilience. By the end of this period, she had solidified her place among the top trainees. Her reputation for calm under pressure, strategic thinking, and precision made her a benchmark for others. Every challenge she faced from that point forward would be measured against her remarkable performance in the ambush exercise. She had not only proven herself in the moment, but she had set a standard that would inspire and challenge others for years to come. Her journey wasn't over, but by this point, it was clear to everyone. She was no longer just a trainee fighting for acceptance. She had become a symbol of possibility, a model of skill and determination, and an example of what could be achieved through focus, preparation, and courage. She had earned respect, inspired others, and rewritten expectations, all through her actions, quietly and decisively, proving that anyone could achieve greatness if they refused to be limited by doubt or prejudice. By the final weeks of training, it was clear that the woman had become a force to be reckoned with. Her peers no longer doubted her abilities. In fact, they now looked to her as an example of what determination, skill, and focus could accomplish. The initial laughter and skepticism that had greeted her arrival had completely disappeared, replaced by admiration and respect. She had proven not just that she could survive SEAL training, but that she could excel in ways that few could match. Every challenge, every drill, every obstacle seemed to bend to her calm and calculated approach. The culmination of all the exercises and missions came during a final simulated operation, designed to push trainees to the absolute limits of physical endurance, mental toughness, and strategic thinking. It was a high-pressure scenario meant to test everything they had learned throughout training. The woman approached it with the same quiet focus that had defined her entire journey. She reviewed the situation carefully, assessed the risks, and mentally mapped out her actions. The other trainees who had once dismissed her now watched closely, knowing that her approach could mean the difference between success and failure. As the operation unfolded, her ability to stay calm under pressure became evident once again. She moved efficiently, analyzed every threat, and made split-second decisions that kept her team safe and the mission on track. Her peers began to realize that what had set her apart was not just her physical skill but her mental discipline. She never let fear or stress cloud her judgment. Every movement was purposeful, every decision deliberate, and every action calculated for maximum effect. During the operation, unexpected challenges arose, testing even the most prepared trainees. But she adapted seamlessly, adjusting her strategy without hesitation. Where others might have panicked or acted impulsively, she remained steady and composed, solving problems as they came. Her team instinctively followed her lead, trusting in her judgment and relying on her guidance. By the end of the exercise, she had not only completed the mission flawlessly, but had done so in a way that inspired confidence and respect from everyone involved. Her final performance cemented her reputation. The instructors praised her for her strategic thinking, composure under pressure, and precision in execution. They highlighted her as a model trainee, emphasizing that she had demonstrated the qualities of a true SEAL: resilience, intelligence, courage, and the ability to act decisively in high-stakes situations. Her journey had come full circle, from being doubted and underestimated to being celebrated and respected as an example of excellence. Among her peers, the transformation was equally remarkable. Those who had once whispered, laughed, or doubted her now spoke of her with admiration. Some admitted privately that they had underestimated her, and the experience had taught them an important lesson about judgment and bias. They saw firsthand that skill, determination, and courage could outweigh assumptions and preconceptions. Many of them began to adopt her approach to training, staying calm, thinking strategically, and focusing on precision rather than speed or bravado. Her impact extended beyond immediate recognition. She became a source of inspiration for female trainees in the program, showing them that gender was no barrier to success. Her achievements proved that with preparation, mental discipline, and unwavering determination, anyone could excel in the most demanding environments. Trainees from all groups began to share her story, not as a tale of a single individual, but as an example of what was possible when one refused to be limited by doubt or prejudice. Even after the program ended, her legacy continued. Instructors and trainees alike referred to her as a benchmark for performance and composure. Her 13-minute ambush exercise, where she neutralized 9 marksmen, became a legendary story within the training community, a demonstration of skill, focus, and courage that would be told to motivate future generations. Her actions left a lasting impression, teaching an important lesson. Excellence comes from preparation, focus, and resilience, not assumptions or stereotypes. Despite all the recognition, she remained humble. She never allowed the praise to distract her from her ongoing training or future missions. Her focus was always on improvement, on readiness, and on mastering her craft. She knew that the challenges ahead would be even greater, and she continued to push herself beyond limits, maintaining the same dedication and discipline that had brought her this far. Her humility, combined with her skill, made her accomplishments even more inspiring. By the end of the training program, she had not only earned the respect of everyone around her, but had also redefined what was possible. She had proven that determination and skill could overcome doubt, that courage could triumph over prejudice, and that excellence was not defined by gender, but by focus, preparation, and mental strength. Her story became a legend within the SEAL community, a reminder that barriers could be broken, expectations exceeded, and respect earned through action rather than words. In the final moments of her training, as she stood among her peers and instructors, there was a profound sense of accomplishment. She had not only completed one of the toughest programs in the world, but had done so in a way that left a lasting mark on everyone who witnessed it. Her journey, from being doubted and underestimated to becoming a symbol of excellence and inspiration, was a testament to the power of preparation, courage, and determination. She had proven, beyond any doubt, that she belonged, that she could excel, and that her story would inspire those who followed her for years to come. Her legacy was clear. She had shown that greatness is earned, not given, and that anyone with focus, skill, and resilience could rise above doubt and expectation. The woman who had once been laughed at for trying to become a SEAL had become a living example of courage, excellence, and inspiration, leaving behind a story that would be remembered long after the training grounds were empty.